Welcome to a podcast celebrating Scottish culture and entertainment, which is here to sing the praises of books, films, comedy, music, theatre, exhibitions, telly, poetry, and all that jazz. I'm Nicola Meehan. I'm an arts writer and broadcaster, and I'll give you the lowdown on what's coming up, what's happening now, what came before, and what we love, which is to say that pretty much every week I'm here to give you a kick up the arts. Now, before I take you to the theatre in this episode, just a reminder that I'm in conversation with the brilliant Val McDermid at Edinburgh's Portobello Bookshop on July the 9th at 7pm. We will talk about all sorts. Tickets start from £5, and that includes a book voucher, and we would love you to join us. You can get hold of those tickets via akickupthearts.org, and that's where you'll also find information about A Kick Up the Arts live at the Edinburgh Fringe with guests like Horse, Justin Curry, Barbara Dixon, Gordon Buchanan, Grant Stott and Gavin Mitchell. Honestly, come to some of them. Come to all of them. I would love to see you. We'll have a ball. Right now, though, we're at one of my old places of work, the Tron Theatre in Glasgow, to celebrate a terrific one-man play called Man's Best Friend. You might have seen the dogs from it all over social media or indeed in their posters and marketing. It is at the Tron until the 12th of July before touring Aberdeen, Ayr, Dundee, Edinburgh, Greenock and Inverness in the autumn. It's written by Scottish theatre lodestar Douglas Maxwell and directed by Tron artistic director Jemima Levick, who was previously at the helm of Dundee Rep, stellar Quines and Oran Mor's A Play, a Pie and a Pint. That's where this production first came to life, as it happens, with Jonathan Watson starring as Ronnie, a man adrift in the wake of loss and lockdown, save for the leads of the local dogs he takes to the park and the memories that keep bringing it all back home. That role's now been evolved thanks to Jordan Young, a River City bad guy, panto good guy, and an actor who is equally adept at physical comedy and quiet tragedy, whether that's in Blackwatch, Chemo Savvy, or right here in his first one-man play. It is comical, heartbreaking, and it's a meditation on what we have to lose, and the loneliness of the long-distance dog walker. I met up with Jordan and Jemima at the Tron this afternoon, and we touched on all of that, or some of it at least. But seeing as every podcast I record, I check levels and plosives by asking my guests to say a play, a pie, and a pint. I did that again today. And it transpires, perhaps to little surprise, that nobody does it better than Jemima, as former director.
Play, a pie and a pint.
See, it's done on every podcast, but it's never been done as beautifully. Do you remember the full spiel?
Yeah. Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Play, Pie and a Pint. We're delighted to see you today. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If now would be a very good time to get your phone switched off or to silent. You don't want to be the person whose phone goes off. I could keep going.
This is
As
wonderful.
an actor, that makes me nervous because I've heard that speech so many times, and you're standing in the mic going, I don't know this, and we're on.
Well, do you know, I've heard that a few times, but I've heard something even better, which is Hannah Jarrett Scott was on the podcast, and she said, more worrying than hearing that spiel. Colin McCready said it was going down in the lift.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Hannah Jarrett Scott said it was worse than that. Yeah. It was the smell of the pastries.
Yeah, it is. It's the smell.
That's so true. God, every actor that's done one will understand. Or the ding of the lift when you know whoever it is that's coming up to get you is coming up. Ding, they're like, oh, they're coming.
The dressing room's moved now. It's downstairs.
Right.
It was my final exiting gift.
Was it?
Nice dressing room.
To try and traumatise people a little bit less.
A little bit less.
Yeah, Colin was like, you're in that lift and you're like, it's one of the rare occasions where you go, please make the lift break.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful insight into what it's like, right? The life of an actor.
Terrifying. Utterly petrifying.
You want to be on that stage and yet you're literally like to the last minute.
Please don't
I
make me do
really
it.
hope this doesn't happen.
Aye. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Aye.
Anyway,
there's been a fire alarm.
Sometimes you're like that to the director as well. But
Yeah. Well, and that is why, despite the fact we are actually literally on set, I've locked all the doors.
Yes.
I have, because I used to work at the Tron, so I've kept all the keys.
Excellent.
So
Good
you're
work.
trapped for
Right.
a little while.
Good work.
I can't believe I'm in Ronnie's seat, which we'll talk about later. But it's so lovely to see you. And it's a very, very busy time. I was here on Tuesday night. I stifled, and I do apologise, but I did stifle them. A few coughing fits because it's so quiet and we're so intense and you're like, hay fever season, dangerous time.
That was bad planning.
However, it was perfect. We got home and the kids were like, oh, did you have a nice time at the theatre? I said, yeah, it was a lovely time at the theatre. They said, what was the play about? And despite its name and despite the wonderful marketing visuals, I was like, oh, it's a play about grief and connections and getting by and living and not living and loving. And I got through all of that before I said, oh, and it's also about dogs. It's like, it's about all of that, right? There's so much to it. And you doing all of it, Jordan Young.
Yes. Yes. It's exactly what you've just said. It's about all of that. Yeah, I think the title is not misleading at all, but, I think a lot of folk think it's just purely, this is just a fun play about dogs. And, of course, it is about dogs, and there's a lot of humour in there, and there's a lot of, if you are a dog lover, there'll be a lot of things that you'll connect to. Yeah. But it's ultimately, it's about so much more than that. It is about grief. It's about living. It's about I think life is happening to Ronnie. Ronnie's not making any decisions. He's just existing. And I think, there's many people, we've all probably been through periods of our life where that's just happening, where whatever's going on with grief or something in your life, life's just, you're trundling along, you're existing, and you're not being proactive, you're not making any choices, and it's a pretty dull, sad existence when that happens, and we all go through spurts of that, then you do something, and I think that's what the play is kind of exploring. Yeah,
it's totally. The thing is, he is reacting and life is happening to him, but it's not entirely passive, and I think this is a really, really important aspect of it. He's really trying. We try our best with what we have. He doesn't have a great deal at that point. He doesn't have the wherewithal. But he is giving it a go, with his mantras and his meditation, and he's leaving the house. Even that can be a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gone through one of the, no spoilers, but one of the worst things you could possibly go through. And it's utterly horrendous. Everything seems futile. Everything, there's no point in anything at all. And he is trying, but with very, very limited success. I think the stuff he's trying, I don't know how much he actually believes in it. I think it's we'll maybe go through the motions of things, going, I'll do a bit of that, I'll do, we see things, reels or that about breathing or yoga or something like that, and you think, I'll do a bit of that, and life will just, you'll click your fingers and it'll be better, and it's so much more complex than that. There's no easy solutions for anything, I think it's got to be a mixture of everything.
That's so true. I mean, I have absolutely loved all the social media to do with the play, the marketing, the photos, and as soon as I told my kids, oh, dogs, oh my goodness, tell me about the dogs, their ears completely pricked up Jemima at the last bit. And I think that's Douglas Maxwell is such a brilliant writer, but I love that he's created this sort of like magical marketing way almost of like luring everybody in with this wonderful, heartbreaking, comical tale really about loss and being lost, but then chucking in a dog called Coriander. Who can resist?
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. I have to confess, I'm not really a dog person, and not in a, I don't profoundly detest them or anything like that. I just never grew up with dogs. It was just never a thing. I can't believe how completely mad everybody is. Like, they're all like, oh, yeah. And we put animation in the show of, the dog characters that we come across. And that was principally at the beginning because I didn't know what those dogs were. Yeah. And it didn't matter how much, I'd done the research, obviously, and I looked them up and I was going, okay, that looks like a collie. But then the moment I'd sort of got 3 minutes down into the play, I was like, well, I can't remember what a collie looks like again. And then
I need a visual prompt.
Exactly. And the number of people who said to me, well, of course, everybody knows what a collie looks like. Everybody knows what a Jack Russell looks like. I was like, do they though? Yeah. I don't think they do. So we decided to do that. But yeah, Douglas was very clever about that. And there is something there's a parallel there about the love of dogs and the love of our animals and the relationships we have and the love that Ronnie has that, he doesn't have anymore, and how we find those parallels between those things. And also because dogs, as I've discovered, there's this whole other world around them. There's this community of people, and there are like theories of life that come with dog walking and approaches to dog handling and everything else, which is mad to me, but also sort of hilarious. It's so ripe for comedy, but also there's something brilliant about going, actually, these dogs and their dog owners, it becomes about generosity and sharing that community as well, and giving Ronnie something to be a part of. even though he doesn't know how to be part of it and actually he's a bit rubbish at it, you know, he does, like, you know, there's a whole world for him to investigate, which is so lovely. And actually, yeah, who knew the dog world was it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think actually there's a dog festival at SWG3, I think, while this is on. And I was like, oh, that can't be real. And then I was like, oh, no, it actually is a thing.
I actually think we did a live on Radio Scotland, a sort of live connect, you know, a live insert to the dog festival one time. I was here for it, I've got to say.
I'm surprised Ronnie's not had an invite to that. I think
frankly,
Ronnie should be a guest of honour or something, shouldn't he?
Never say never. It might be this weekend. It's got to happen. When did you first encounter Ronnie Jordan? What did you make of him? But also, what drew you to him? Because we see so many sides to him, if you like, but the story's there as well.
Yeah. So ultimately, when Jemima asked me if I'd be interested in doing this show, one-man show, I was utterly petrified, but really, really intrigued. Like, it's definitely been a bucket list thing to do. But I remember she sent me a message and I was like, send me the script, because I thought, and I've said this to a few people, I kind of secretly hoped I didn't like the script, because if I didn't like it, it would get me out of doing it.
Yes.
And I thought, but then I'll just lie to Jemima and say, oh, I'm doing something, I'm filming something or that, right?
Polite excuse.
Yes, she'll never know.
Yeah.
And then I read it, and I was completely and utterly blown away and quite bereft after it. I was crying when I read the script on a cold read first time, and I'm not the kind of person I'm not a very good judge of scripts. When I read things cold for the first time, I need someone else to tell me if it's good or not. And I was so moved by it that instantly, the second I finished reading it, I remember I was sitting on one and I was like, oh God, I'm going to have to do this.
Oh, wow.
I have to do this. And even now I still get the butterflies of the feeling, because it's a beast, it's a big show. And I was like, no, I need to do this. And I think it's a stunning piece of writing, and I'm not just saying that loosely. I think it's an absolutely stunning piece of writing, and it covers so much. You know, there is a lot of comedy in it. There is a lot of pathos. There's a lot of, you know, humanity, and grief's a subject that, you know, obviously every single person goes through at some stage, and I was really drawn to that, and I think it's handled beautifully by Douglas. I think some of the writing, some of his imagery, even though it can be very poetic, instantly you know what he means, and you go, oh God, I know exactly what you're meaning by that. I know that feeling. So that was that's what drew me in instantly.
Yeah, no, I've got to say, you know, in the audience, and it's 80 minutes, it's funny, because I was going to say, you know, my God, 80 minutes, one-man play, populated by mad dogs, what possessed you? The writing possessed you, right? The story possessed you, and Ronnie possessed you. I kind of feel like Jemima was one of those plays where we sat down and we held our breaths, and we kind of didn't let them out again till the end of it. But I love that you must have had Jordan in mind for this. Now, I cannot imagine. And incidentally, I spoke to Johnny Watson about Man's Best Friend a good few months ago, before I knew this was happening. We recorded up at Oran Mor for the podcast, and again, the wonderful memories of a play and a pie and a pint, and that particular production. But when it was coming back round, what struck me about Jordan, having seen you in everything from obviously the telly to panto to someone like Chemo Savvy, is when you're on this stage, and you've said this online, Jemima, you know, he's absolutely knocking it out of the park. It's this sort of emotional pivot, but it's so natural. Was that what you maybe had in mind? What did you see in Jordan that made you go, I'm going to have to mail him about this, he's in my mind for it?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like, I mean, you know, as a director, you spend quite a lot of time casting and seeing actors in motion and everything else. You should probably just leave the room now, actually.
I know, I was a bit like, cover your ears, Jordan. It might be terrible, by the way.
I know.
She was like, I actually emailed 100 other people.
He was the only one that said yes.
He was 19th on the list.
It was of 19.
I'm cheap and available.
He was 19th of 18.
He's crying. I suppose you're always looking out for, you know, you're sort of looking out for people who, you know, people who have a kind of a charm about them. And the thing about this, I suppose the thing about this place, what it's like, you know, for a start, you need to get somebody who is going to be able to handle being on their own on the stage for 80 minutes. And actually, even though every actor should be able to handle that in theory, the truth is that not all can. And some people are just really brilliant in an ensemble. They're really good at sort of, they're good at sparring off people. So it needs to be somebody who's got what we call the acting chops to get up and hold an audience for 80 minutes and not fall apart at that. They're going to learn the lines. They're going to do the work. They're going to, this is all very pragmatic, but they're going to show up and they're going to really hold people. And Douglas and I talked about it a little bit, and he was going, but there's no one who can do the funny and the real heart of the drama. And I think that's what's really challenging about this piece, is it's got to be somebody who can make everybody laugh for the first 20 minutes. And that really slims your choices down.
Sure.
Because there's lots of terrific actors, and in the same way as when you're doing a musical, you're like, Jordan Young's brilliant, can't sing a note, can't put him in it.
He has told me that before, to be fair.
True story.
He can hold a tune. But, it's like there are just, there are technical limitations on some people's skill. But, and also, I think because we knew that it wouldn't be Johnny Watson coming back to do it, both Douglas and I were of the mind that we wanted somebody very different.
Yeah,
we didn't want somebody to walk in and do an impersonation of Johnny. That was not what we wanted. We wanted to go somewhere else. And actually, it was through lots of conversations with Douglas, and I remember going, oh, hang on a minute. And Jordan isn't... I mean, we were at college at the same time together. We were in the same year at college. So we've known each other for a very long time. We've never actually done a show together. Obviously, all the work he's done at River City, he's done tons of theatre before that in loads of really heavyweight shows. It was like, actually, Jordan's got the chops and he can do the funny. Yeah. And it was like, and then it was only and then I remember saying it out loud to Douglas, and he went, yes, it has to be him.
Wow.
Which I have to say is a little bit frightening, because then you go, oh, but he might not be available. Please don't get too excited.
The whole thing now is going to crash and burn without
anyone
Jordan
else I
Young.
suggest is going to be rubbish.
It's ruined.
It's ruined.
It needs to be a play about cats now.
Yes, exactly. Totally. Sack off the dogs, get the mice in. But yeah, and then I was like, actually, and then it was only after we started talking about it, me and Jordan, that I remember going, oh God, suddenly this play feels like it has a whole new life around it, because Jordan's younger than Johnny is.
Sure, yeah.
I don't think that's an unfit. I don't think Johnny will be cross with me for saying that. But there was something about Ronnie being a man in his 40s where suddenly you go, gosh, he's got an awful lot of life ahead of him.
Yeah.
So the loss that he has experienced and the life that he is living, suddenly that changes the perspective of how we respond to that as an audience. And so when Jordan was like, oh, he did say quite early on, he went, oh yeah, it's funny because doing a one-man show is a bit of a bucket list thing. And I was like, oh, maybe he's going to say yes.
Wow.
And I remember Douglas messaging me, like, have you messaged him? I was like, I'm on it. You're getting there.
I thought it was just me who was like, I just won't ask, then I've still got hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know, because sometimes no news is
totally self-sabotaging. I'll just never ask at all. Exactly. Then it might have always been possible.
I'll just keep hoping. Yeah, and then luckily it landed, and I just remember Douglas being like, yes, this is brilliant. Then he was like, let's meet for coffee, and I was like, crumbs, we're about 8 months off. The poor man's got a life to live. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to start thinking about it now.
Yeah, because once it's in your mind, and once a character like that is in your mind, it must be hard to shake them. But also being in the audience, obviously it was press night, so I saw a few of the press pack in. I saw lovely Neil Cooper, saw his 5-star review, which I completely concur with, but it made me feel quite vulnerable in the audience as well, because we know you're coming on and it's just you, along with the dogs. We'll get to them. But I wonder what that was like. Never mind the 5-star reviews. Never mind what they and we thought of you. What did you think of the audience? Because it's a really vulnerable position for us as well. The dynamic feels really charged.
Yeah, it is like nothing I've ever experienced before,
Sure.
Career-wise. And it's, me and Jemima, we talk about this at length, and I kind of dissect everything. Each show, I'm kind of talking through how I feel or whatnot.
Okay.
So press night obviously comes with its own pressures, and you have to just with any show, you think, right, press night, it is just another night, and you've got to believe in the work you've done. You've got to believe in the foundations and the groundwork that you've created, and you're like, this is a show you're not changing anything, you're not trying harder, you're just, that's the aim. But my wife was in, and she said she couldn't concentrate for the first 20, 25 minutes. She said I couldn't breathe because she was so nervous for me.
Yeah. Oh.
And I know, I kind of knew she would be like that. She wants to come back and see it. She was like, the first 20 minutes, I don't really know what happened because I couldn't breathe.
Oh, wow.
And I get that. And I think, and Jemima's been phenomenal at this, like, at the very beginning, I think the actor's instinct, or certainly my instinct, is to go at 100 miles an hour. And it's nerves, because the adrenaline hits you. And so as soon as nerves, it's like your brain goes, just get through it, because then don't pause, because you can't make mistakes if you pause. And in a piece like this, what often is the pause is when your mind goes, oh, what you doing now? Yeah. But Jemima's been brilliant at trying to rein me in and going, like, just take it. And I am getting better at it, and it's something you've got to hit the ground running and not warm up on stage, not get into it on stage. You've got to be into it from immediately. I do think we take the audience on a bit of a journey, as probably most shows do, but I think this really does, because I think tonally, if you know nothing about it, you start off and you're like, all right, I think we know the vibe of this show. I think we know what's going on. There's a bit of a laugh here, a bit of a giggle about dogs. This is great. Where's it going? And it takes such a tonal change. And I love that about it. I think that's one of its massive strengths. And you do feel the audience going on that journey with you. And that's my job, is to make sure that journey's completed fully. And I love the change, and you can feel it in the audience.
Completely. I would say two things about that, though, to both of you. The one thing was being very aware of the fact that you were coming on, it was 80-ish minutes, there's no interval, there's no one else there, there's no one to spar off, you just got to go with it. As soon as you came on the stage, I was like, oh, this is going to be fine. And it's that strange thing where, have you not got enough on your plate, Jordan, without having to put the audience at ease as well, right? Because you genuinely do that. You know, there's a sort of natural element, and you're talking about the absolute emotional depths of it, but it never felt jarring to me at all. And I think there's so much about the storytelling element of the writing, of the direction, of the stagecraft, and of Jordan, which seems to, I mean, that's such a fine line, Jemima, to bring that to life.
It is a lot, and it's like we've been saying all the way through, it's like, Jordan's playing all these characters that he's talking to himself.
And dogs.
Like, and dogs. Yeah, exactly. And kind of creating them, because the show is always narration, so he's always looking backwards, so he knows what's happened, so he's reporting it. But also you can't really report it. You sort of have to live it in the moment as well, so you tell the story of that moment. We were saying, there is always a moment in one of those processes when you can see an actor going, oh, that other character's coming on. Thank goodness I can take a break. And it's like, no, it's still you, darling. You're the other character too.
Sorry, you're Robert and Robert.
Yes.
Exactly, yes. And Ronnie talking to Robert. So great luck. Yeah. And the dogs are still barking, by the way.
Yeah. And it's raining.
Yes, and it's raining. And can you just play that as well at the same time as this?
Yeah.
And actually,
you're playing the weather as well, really, right? God almighty.
Actually, when it's quite sweaty, that's good, because you do look like you've been rained on. But I think there's a real benefit to having an audience as well. And this is one of the great things about being Jordan, is because you've done so much panto, he's not afraid of the audience. Yeah. And I think if somebody's not had that kind of interaction, and who knows what's going to happen in panto? I mean, who knows what's going to happen on stage, let alone with an audience? We've had several shandies and 99 sweeties. You're like, you never know, do you? But we definitely got to a point when we were like, actually, we're ready for the audience, because they become another character. Completely. And because they come on the journey with you. And there are about, I would say there's about like 9 balls in the air at any one time. And in some ways it's a pleasure as an audience, I was thinking, and as a director as well, to watch somebody juggle all of those, and you've got 5 dogs and 3 other characters on stage, and the character you've got. And then actually, as the story goes on, sometimes you just drops loads of them, and you just get down to one, and you go, oh, I feel like I can relax with you now. And then he picks them all up again. And that's the joy of the storytelling, really, is you get a chance to just go on that journey. And the strength of the writing really helps, but there is definitely a terrible production of this play somewhere along the line. I mean, when we were rehearsing, we were casting it in our heads because we were like, sometimes it's just really useful to have the person in your head that you're playing.
Okay,
so
yeah.
We fully cast it.
Really?
Haven't we? Yeah. Every character.
We were like, I reckon that Chihuahua's owner is definitely Scott Fletcher. Right, very good.
Yeah.
And the moment you know who it is, you're like, oh, great, you've got the same person in your head.
But I love that because that works within you being on stage and the way in which we populate our imaginations, okay, because you're doing that, okay, well, you're speaking to the Roberts or the neighbours or the baby that's not really, everyone's there. But I think there's also this element where the less there is in a story, that could be poetry, it could be literature, but certainly in theatre, the less you're seeing, the more you invest your imagination in it as an audience member as well. So we've all got the Chihuahua. We've got the owners of Rex and whoever, and the warring dog walkers. So there is this kind of closeness. There's maybe more of an intimacy when there are fewer actual people really on the stage.
Yeah.
Well, you're all of them,
isn't it? It's like reading, isn't it? You just you use your own imagination, and the characters of Jenna and Roscoe in it, which are quite the predominant in the story, that every single audience member will have an image of them, and no two people have the same idea. And I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's
completely. But you even wrong foot us with these imaginary characters. We might get the measure of Roscoe, and then no spoilers, but he maybe turns things around, right? So it's wonderful. You kind of question everything. Jemima, you've used the word journey a few times, and there are so many connections within this production, but also the journey, if you like, of this particular play, from a play, A Pie and a Pint, to the Tron, but also with Douglas Maxwell and you and the Tron. It goes way back as well, doesn't it? Everything is invested, and every new production, I suppose, brings all of that forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, Douglas's first play was produced here 25 years ago, Our Bad Magnet, and that's a play I've always loved. I read it when I was at college, and I really loved it then. And then his show Helmet was on at the Traverse when I was an usher there, when I was a student.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I watched that show more than I've probably seen any of my own work. I did stop paying attention after a while, surprisingly. It was very good to begin with. To begin with. But yeah, and it's funny, and actually, I did, like, his wife works at the National Theatre of Scotland. I did her maternity cover when they had their first child. So we've sort of been in and out around each other's lives for a very, very long time. And I mean, it's only relatively recently we started working together. I think Man's Best Friend was the first thing I directed of Douglas's. And now I'm praying that is right and I've not forgotten something.
I'm phoning them if you're wrong and telling them.
I can't remember anything.
Fake news.
And we did Sheriff of Kalamaki at PPP as well. And, it's like, but it's been brilliant giving and that journey from Play Pint and Pint, which is so wonderful. It's amazing the sheer body of work you can present at Play Pint and Pint, and the speed at which it runs. Yeah. But I've always said that Play Pint and Pint is like tequila theatre. You get like a slam dunk of it, whereas we can move this play out of that version into the sort of glass of wine version where you can indulge it a little bit more, can give it better production values. We can kind of, we can up the scale of the design. We can get a beautiful lighting.
I mean, the set. We're literally sat on the set. I'll maybe get you to describe it a little bit. I mean, no spoilers. I'm in Ronnie's chair. That's all I'm saying. But also, it's so insular and internal, and it's so external. It's the entirety of Glasgow in some ways. It's woodland. It's the city, and I just love the fact that it's like our microphones are on it. It's just a bit of carpet and a bit of wood. Again, imagination is everything. That is not to belittle this set. It's amazing.
No, for
May
real.
I say?
I think it's one of the hardest challenges is doing shows that should be outdoors. I remember when the Lyceum announced they were doing Local Hero, and I was like, you can't do that. It's all about landscapes, And it's like, and this is
shocker.
It's set in a park. It's like, you're mad. Do it on screen, for the love of God. But actually, there's something brilliant about that challenge. And Becky Minto, who designed the set,
what a legend, by the way, Becky Minto. Where would we be without Becky Minto?
The woman is so prolific. I've done so many shows with her now, and it's always wonderful. She's always in an incredibly good mood. I hope I'll never see the other side of her. She was so brilliant because she was like, we looked at loads of pictures of sort of structural kind of outdoorsy things, and actually this was inspired by a museum in somewhere in Scandinavia that sort of like spiraled out of the ground. And and you know, we were looking for texture that would create pathways. And then actually when she was like, I think it should be carpet. And then actually it was Douglas when he came in to the tech and he looked at the set and he went, you know, there's something amazing about a man being outside in the park, but he's existing on wooden carpet, which is exactly what would be inside as well.
Exactly.
So there's a man who's never really come out of lockdown and out of his house. And then she was like, you know, what if there were fences and actually we could create the skyline of Glasgow through the fence, you know? And it's, you know, all of that is such a gift inventively, and that's what we can do in theatre really brilliantly, you know, is sort of demand the audience exercise their imaginations a little bit more than you might do in film, where, you know, you've decided exactly where they're looking, what they're looking at, all the people there. You know, we don't ask it, just as we were saying about the other characters, you know, we make decisions for people in screen that we don't do in theatre. You know, we're just giving them one big wide shot and going, right, you go and let your imagination run wild. So it's I am still a little bit surprised at how well it works, to be honest.
No, honestly,
you know.
I think it's I adore this set. I really genuinely do, and I think the biggest praise I can get is I can't imagine how else this show could possibly work.
This is what I wondered
set.
for you,
You know?
you coming into this in the landscape of your imagination, Jordan. Yeah, quite. What did you make of it?
Well, so I reading the script and learning it and before rehearsals. Weirdly, I never ever once thought about the set. I always just had an image of me just standing in a black box telling the story. Not that that's what I wanted, it's just what my imagination was doing. And we came into the read-through, and then there's the set box there, and you're like, oh, God, of course there's going to be a set. Thank goodness. I won't just be standing still, you know, dressed in like a mime artist.
I think that's a lovely insight into how you were feeling about it.
Yeah.
Right?
But
were you naked?
Yeah,
Sorry, not to objectify you.
That's for the matinees. And I was like, oh, wow, great. And then Becky's obviously an absolute legend, and I think she's one of the best there is in this country.
Yeah.
And I think the set is phenomenal. It works so well, and I love being on it, and I love the way Jemima's made it work for me. You know, like we use every nook and cranny of it, and I adore it, and I can't imagine it working on any other set. Yeah,
exactly. I would say, listen, we've been singing your praises enough, so just to kind of counter that slightly. Okay, I absolutely love, let's just say, the dogs as they appear on stage.
Oh, yeah.
But I do not think it's a spoiler to say there aren't any actual dogs on stage. And I want to say, would it have been too hard for you to maybe even just handle a couple of Labradoodles, given the last time I saw you on stage before this, it was at the pantomime, it was Cinderella, Jordan, it was at the Festival Theatre, and there was an absolutely giant flying horse, which must have been real, right?
Yeah, it was. Of course it was. You can't pay all that money for a panto and not have a real flying horse, honestly.
A couple of dogs. Even the promo shoot for this must have been great fun.
I know. I remember that day we were in Queen's Park, and Jemima was like, oh, we're doing the photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. I turned up with a couple of dogs, and yeah, great. And I'm a huge dog person. I grew up with dogs my whole life, all that, blah, blah, blah. And there was what, 6 dogs or something, 5 dogs. And of course, none of them wanted to do the same thing. See, when you're trying to get dogs to do, they're just normal dogs. They're not trained or like expert dogs, and it was quite intense with it.
It was a lot. You nearly got pulled over several times.
Yes.
I was
That's
like,
good practice for,
let's
say, certain scenes in this.
Yeah, a lot of folk are disappointed there's not real dogs in this. Like, people in the industry, and you say, they're like, oh, is that a real dog? It would just be like me standing in the middle of the stage, like on Britain's Got Talent, with a dog walking backwards. It's like, how would that work? How could that work?
I want to say 2 things. I have had a dog on the podcast before, the Chihuahua, Bridget the Chihuahua, who starred in Scottish Opera's Don Pasquale.
Right.
I would also say there are real dogs on stage. For me, there are. They're
good.
absolutely there.
Great.
Okay, they're there with us. Finally, because you do have a show tonight, and at this rate, we're going to crash it, and you won't be able to get naked and go in your black box, Jordan Young. It is about dogs. And you're not a dog person, really, Jemima. But it's kind of not, right? It's just about loving something and maybe being lucky enough to have something to keep us going and to have a connection with and when we feel totally lost.
Exactly, and actually keeping on going for something else.
Yeah.
Like, often that's the thing that when you lose someone, you got to have something to live for, you know, and actually that's what the dogs do.
Yeah.
And actually they give him a whole life beyond anything he could imagine. And that, what's brilliant about what Douglas has written is that keeps on spilling out further and further and further when you don't expect it to go any further. But it is really beautiful. And, you know, even as a self-professed non-dog person, I'm also like, it's amazing to me how much dogs give people, you know, and that love and companionship and, just something to live for. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, don't tell my children because they are desperate for a dog. But I'm not converted, but I am like, oh, I can see it now.
I'm not a betting woman, but I'm absolutely going straight down to William Hill and putting a lot of money on the fact that you're going to have one by the end of this run.
Oh, don't
That's
say
all I'm
that.
saying.
Honestly,
Look, Jordan's nodding.
Yeah.
She'd be so happy. If I could get an animated one, that would be fine.
She's got a projector, that'd be fine.
Go and pat the projection, pet. Okay.
Take the projector out for a walk.
Go and feed the projector. All right, on that note, you do actually have some work to do. Thank you so much. Lovely to speak to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actor Jordan Young and Tron artistic director Jemima Levick chatting on set at the Tron this very afternoon about Douglas Maxwell's Man's Best Friend. It runs in Glasgow till the 12th of July and then it'll be touring in Aberdeen, Ayr, Dundee, Edinburgh, Greenock and Inverness in the autumn. If you fancy listening back to my chat with Two Doors Down favourite Johnny Watson, the original Ronnie in Man's Best Friend, or indeed another play, A Pie and a Pint legend Dave Anderson, well, there's a Kick Up the Arts episodes for that. You can also listen back to Hannah Jarrett Scott reminiscing about the terror of those pastries at a play, A Pie and a Pint on the Kick Up the Arts. She's in conversation with Horse, and Horse returns as my live guest at Edinburgh Fringe. Did I mention August the 24th will be at the stand? And Jordan's River City, Chemo Savvy and Edinburgh Panto co-conspirator Grant Stott also joins me at the stand. That's on August the 21st, and you should totally, obviously, join us for that. And if you're not at the Portobello Bookshop for Val McDermott on July the 9th, well, what are you doing is all that I'm saying. Thank you as ever for listening. Please like, share, tune in, tell your pals, come to the live events, subscribe to the newsletter. I'm going to write one soon. I really am. Do any of that. Do all of it. I'm away to walk my dog. Bye for now.